Right. So we have these two scripts: player selector, which is a switch statement, and it has some very basic code in it where you can pick what kind of person you are. And if it's unknown, it goes into this whole script here and it re-prompts you to make sure to select one of these people. Now, what we want to do is think about, well, how do we break this code up so it's a little bit easier to read, right? So for example, we have these references here to our UI system, and you don't really want to do that. You want to keep your code as clean as possible. It was this is kind of intentional. I did it this way. You always want to like kind of write a bunch of code, figure it out, make sure it works, and then you want to sort of clean it up or refactor it. And then you want to think about making it as simple as possible and giving it the single responsibility within each class. And what that means is this responsibility of this class, which is called player setup controller, is really just to set up the player, get their name and their information. We really need another script, and I'm going to go ahead and create that now. And it's a new model behavior script, and we just call this one UIController. I'm going to drag this into the scene. Now, this UIController should really control the user interface. We shouldn't have all of this jarbled or built into this. So we're going to get some errors in here. And it's okay at first. So it's going to be a little bit scary as we begin to clean this out. So for example, what I want to extract out is we have these two fields here. We have this TMP text output and input field. These both deal with the UI. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit Control X and cut those. And you can see it automatically gave me a red error. And it's saying, hey, you have all this stuff going on. But don't worry, we're going to fix that. And I'm just going to paste these inside of here. Now we also have errors here, and the reason for that is we're missing these two using directives here that we're going to need. So let's go ahead and paste those in. Let's save that. Now the next thing we need is a reference to this UI controller. So in top of the player setup script where we had this header, below this header, let's go ahead and let me pause the video. I'm just going to enter this text. Now this is going to be a reference to our UI controller. Now if we look at here, we have a player setup controller here, and now we have a field. And this field is for, let's see, let's make sure this is, oh, we still have errors, so it's not going to update. Let's take a look at some of the things it needs. It needs output text here, and it needs the input field. So it needs reference to all of that stuff inside of our UI controller here. So let's go ahead and just kind of write those methods out. So I'm not going to need any of this. I'm going to create a couple of, really three new methods, right? One, to set up our text. And so it's going to set the output text. So we're going to call this method, and so let's see, public void, and then I'm just going to call it set output text. And man, that IntelliSense is on its way today. So what this is going to do is it's going to take this output text here. And again, this is a reference to our canvas here, right? We have a output text field here, right? And we'll hook all this stuff up in a second. So output text dot text equals the text being passed in. So let's save that. Let's go ahead and just to save us time, I'm going to duplicate this whole method by hitting Control D. And I'm going to change this from set output text to get input text. And this doesn't take any parameters. And all this is going to do is it's going to return the text. And this will make better sense when we, of the input field. Dot text, and then I'm going to actually do a dot trim here. And we don't want a void here. We want this to be of type string because that's a string of letters. So when we call this method, all it's going to do is it's going to grab whatever is in the input field. That means whatever we type in, we call this method, it'll return it. And the last thing we need is to clear it. So we're going to do clear. Here, let me go ahead and, nope, there we go. Clear input field, and it already thought of that out for me. So what it's doing is it's saying input field.text equals nothing, and that clears it out. Now, it's really cool that it knew kind of ahead of, it's pretty smart when it comes to that, but the problem is it needs to see your logic as you're going along. So as you get better with programming, it'll offer suggestions, but most times if if you don't have like a clear understanding of the basics or fundamentals of programming, it's going to give you a lot of incorrect suggestions. All right, so we've got all this stuff going on. We've got this finished, this UI controller. Let's go ahead and just create a empty game object here, and I'm going to call this UI controller. And on this script, I'm going to drag this in there, and now I'm going to grab that output text field, place that in there, and then my input text field here. So this is what's controlling all of that. And then I will make sure that this is right next to this controller here. And I might even just make an empty game object here and just call this controllers. And grab both of these controllers and drop them on here. Okay, so let's see. We've got these two controllers here. We've got our output and our input fields. But if we select this again, we no longer need these two fields. And it's not, even though we can save this script, it's not updating it. And the reason for that is because we've got these errors. So let's go ahead and fix these errors. We have this UI controller here. And using this UI controller, which will become public once we fix these errors, we want to be able to set the text, get the text, and clear the input. So we've done this before. We did output text here, right? But what I want to do is something like this. I want to say UI controller dot set output text. And remember, this is a method here, right? And then we pass in a string of text. Well, we already have this here, so let's grab this. And we just paste that in there, and this becomes a reusable block of code. And then we can just delete this line of code. And that's one error down. And then we just kind of keep going through. Then we have string entered text equals input field text.trim. If we look at our controller here, we have a get input text, right? And this is our input field here. And this is what does the trim. And then we have this clear input field. So all we have to do now is the same thing as before, grab our UI controller. And instead of typing all of this out, we do UI controller dot get input text. And so what this is going to do is after we hit submit, right, which is our tab key, anything we type in, it'll pass that input text, or it'll get that input text, which is whatever we type inside of here, using this method here, which all this does is return the text that's inside of that. So we can kind of just go through now and say, oh, input text here, that text to clear it out. Well, I could just do UI controller dot, and then you could see it has set it output text, input field, get input text. And then if you look over here, we have this last one, which is clear input field. And we can just have that written out for us. And then output text here, we could say, okay, we have this. I'm just going to copy that. So we just probably copy this whole thing. And then just do something like this. And then instead of, let's see, we can grab all of this code here, hit Control X. Just make sure that it's in between these parentheses. And I might have to hit enter and tab that down. Looks like it went way off screen. So hit, I'm just going to do it by all the pluses. So there's one plus. Here's another plus. And no errors there. This one clears the input field. I have that going on here. And then I'm just going to actually make this a little bit easier on myself. I'm going to copy that first half, paste that here, and then just put a closing parenthesis there. Save that. See, oh, we got one more output text here. Closing parenthesis. Let's save that. And we should now have a field in our player setup controller now for our UI controller. I'm going to drag that and drop that inside of there. So let's save that and let's test it. And please enter your name, Alex. Hit tab. Welcome player name to your adventure. What type of player are you? And actually, why did it say player name? I think I have to mess with the formatting. Yeah, welcome player name here. Let's see. I think that's gonna fix it. Yeah, we've got to get rid of all these extra line breaks. Let's see. Let's see. This. A dollar sign should be out of here. So the dollar sign being in front of the parentheses is what fires this off. And then we have this plus sign here. What type of player are you? New line. Let's get rid of this here. This should be in a quote. Let's get rid of all that. Just kind of clean all this up. Yeah, it added a lot of stuff in here. And this, I have two. I should just delete that top one. Yeah, so take a quick look at how I did this formatting here. It should be a lot cleaner now. And that'll make better sense. And this dollar sign outside of here is what enters the name. And that's also going to give me some issue here. No, that should be okay. Player type, dollar sign. Okay, let's save this. Let's try that one more time. Alex tab. Welcome, Alex, to your adventure. What type of player are you? I am a cop. Tab. You've chosen to be a cop, Alex. Your adventure begins. And then let's just double check that the no name and the so if we just do tab, no name, what type of person are you? You is not a valid player type. Please choose one of the following. Let's just type in cop again, and there we go. All right, I think that's good. And so again, just talking about refactoring and creating a UI controller, and when you do stuff like this, it makes your script read and look a lot cleaner. And again, if you're struggling to be like, wait, I don't understand, it's getting complicated. You don't have to understand how an entire project works. You just have to be able to say, okay, this is a variable, this is a function, and it runs once. You just kind of have to know how to read code. You don't have to. A lot of people think you have to be able to look at an entire library and understand everything. It's not how it works. You'll never be able to do that, even when you work at a studio. So that's it for now.